Are you tired of feeling sluggish, crashing the day, or loading up on sugary energy drinks that just don't cut it? W is here to change that. It's a clean energy drink formulated to give you focus, clarity, and long lasting energy without the jitters or crash. No sugar, no artificial dyes, just results. Whether you're grinding through a workout, editing content, or pulling an all nighter for the big game, W's got your back. And guess what? As a listener of this podcast, you get 10% off your order when you use code West Coast at checkout. That's WESTCOAST, all one word, for 10% off at www.dubby.gg. Fuel up the smart way with W.
Snaps it anyway. Greer lobs it in the air. Oh, what a catch, Gary Jennings! Touchdown, West Virginia! Is his foot down? Absolutely.
Welcome to the West Coast WVU podcast, part of 224 Podcast Network. My name is James Brooks, and I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. It's been a few weeks since my last episode, just been busy with life, work life, personal life, all that kind of stuff. Just haven't not had the time to sit down and put together a podcast episode. And I know in one of my previous episodes, I talked a lot about wanting to do a preview episode for this upcoming season for West Virginia. So that's what we're going to do today. And we've kind of been talking about this and how this season is so hard to predict with just the roster turnover, a new head coach going into Saturday. We don't even know who. As of right now, we're 3 days away from the first game, and we don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be, and we probably won't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be even after this game against Robert Morris. So I think they'll throw someone out. Maybe Nico Marchiol will go out and start off this. Maybe he'll be the starter, but they'll bring in some of the other guys as well. So who's to say that just because someone starts against Robert Morris that they'll beat the quarterback going on through the rest of the season? It'll probably take maybe at least the first couple games. I think the goal probably is, or at least should be, that going into Pitt week 3, that we'll have the starting quarterback solidified by then. But maybe the first two games against Robert Morris in Ohio, West Virginia is going to just be feeling things out a little bit to see who the starter should be. So all that being said, I've had part of my delay in getting an episode like this out has been trying to figure out trying to just analyze and figure out what these teams in the Big 12 are going to look like, and kind of getting an understanding of what West Virginia's limitations are and stuff. I do think, kind of going back to what I've talked about in previous episodes, it's really hard to predict when you've had so much roster turnover. We just don't know what the team looks like and all that stuff. So that being said, I asked Chat GPT what they think the prediction will be. And before I say anything about what Chat GPT said, I want to mention that I did in my previous episodes when I've been talking about West Virginia and looking into the season and stuff, I did mention that I think that if Rich Rod and West Virginia can end up being bowl eligible this season, then that would be a win. So getting 6 wins is kind of like, in my mind, the cap of, if we do have a good season, we're in a bowl game. Obviously, only winning 6 games, being 6-6, is a little frustrating, even with the new coach and stuff. But I just think, like, with a brand new coach, with huge roster turnover. Yes, Rich Rod is familiar with West Virginia, but it's different. 2020, we're in 2025 now. It's different than how things were in 5 or 2007. It's a big, college football landscape is different, and he has done well where he's gone, and he's been able to build up stuff. But it's a process. Even when he first started at West Virginia in the early 2000s, he had a couple seasons of losing. I think losing seasons before he started turning West Virginia into an elite powerhouse type school. So all that being said, I think 6-6 is kind of like the benchmark of a successful season or not. Obviously, we want better. We do want better, but we got to be realistic here also. So that being said, ChatGPT, they did a game-by-game prediction per my request, and they basically based it off of FPI win probability, which is fair. I mean, especially going into, and again, I'm talking about AI here. Like, of course, they're going to use things like win probability and stuff. And at the end of the day, there's more that goes into football and predictions than win probability, but it is a good benchmarker, a good marker to try and gauge how we think teams are going to do. And I think also part of it is, yes, we know we might know more about our opponents than we even know about ourselves at this point. So in that sense too, it's like, okay, yeah, Arizona State won the Big 12 last year. They're bringing back a bunch of guys. Like they'll probably be good again. Yeah, probably going to be a tough game. Kansas has improved their roster. Probably going to be a tough game. And so on and so forth. So that being said, let's just jump right on into it and see. So first game, August 30th, Robert Morris. The win probability for West Virginia is 98.7%, almost a near certain victory over Robert Morris, who's an FCS opponent. So I think in that case, like we're expected to not only win that game but dominate that game. It'll be a good kind of like a preseason type game almost, where hopefully we can get our feelers out. We can kind of kick the rust off a little bit. We can throw multiple quarterbacks out there to get some game experience. Maybe we can even get Scotty Fox out there, who I think he's a freshman this year. Maybe get him some game experience early on. And this is a game that we should be winning by 40 plus points. 44-0, 56-7. Like those types of scores is what we should be looking for in a game against Robert Morris. So then moving on to the next week against Ohio. So this is a weird game because we're playing at Ohio. This is like a home and home series with Ohio. We play them in Morgantown next season. We start off this series against Ohio at home. Usually these types of games, we're going to be playing them in Morgantown. You typically wouldn't play an opponent, like a MAC type opponent, at their stadium in the second week of the season. But we are playing at Ohio, and FPI win probability, according to Chat GPT, is 63.9% in favor of West Virginia. So prediction there is that we will win. Looks like we've led that series 13-4, but haven't played them since 2001. So it's been quite some time since we have played Ohio, but we should get the win there. Ohio, it's one of those sneaky teams though. You think Ohio, a MAC teams, only having a 63.9% probability of winning that game seems really low for West Virginia, but I think Ohio's been, for being a MAC school, they're a good opponent, and with our roster turnover and all that stuff going into this season, it's just hard to really predict a lot of domination there. So hopefully we win that game. We should 100% win that game. If we don't win that game, then we know we have problems. If we can't beat Ohio, then we definitely know that we are probably it's going to be a stretch to be able to get to a bowl game. So we'll see from there. So going on from there, September 13th, the game that we all have circled, 9-13 against Pittsburgh in Morgantown. Current FPI win probability, according to Chat GPT, is 56%. So they're predicting that we will win that game. They say slight edge from FPI, home field advantage could tip it. So, and I think I agree with that. I mean, I think going in, and I don't know, again, it's hard because I don't have a lot to base this off of, not knowing who the quarterback's going to be. And I think we'll have a better idea of predictability after week 2. So we'll build on this prediction. But I just have a hard time believing that Rich Rod is going to lose to Pitt in Morgantown in his first season back as West Virginia's head coach. That's just kind of where it's at. Maybe it's just I'm just feeling the vibes, but that's what I'm feeling. So I agree with ChatGPT there. I don't know that I'll disagree with ChatGPT at all, honestly. We'll see. But so next week, September 20th, we play at Kansas, and our FPI win probability is only 19.9%, so like a 20% chance to win that game. So they're predicting a loss. Kansas, just a significantly stronger program this year, according to 24/7 Sports. So starting off, going undefeated 3-0 in non-conference games, starting off the Big 12 at Kansas with a loss. I don't know. I'll have to keep diving into this one. I think Kansas is a school that historically we should be able to beat. Obviously, we can't just base our predictions off of history when it's, if the team has adjusted and built up their roster to be better and whatnot. But again, we don't know what our roster looks like. We could have a bunch of hidden gems in there that are going to come out and just dominate. So is that likely? At this point, I honestly couldn't even say if it is likely or not. We'll have to wait and see. Next week, we go up against Utah on September 20th with a 50.9% chance to win. So a pretty razor-thin edge to WVU. We do play that game at home. So if we have the Mountaineer faithful showing out and showing up and giving us a strong home field advantage, then that could, again, tip the scales, kind of similar to the Pitt game. And I think Utah is one of those schools that historically they're pretty good. They did well in the Pac-12, and Utah fans think they run the Big 12, having just come in. I don't know that that's actually the case or not. We'll have to kind of see. I think they've had some disappointing seasons the last couple seasons, so I agree that this could go either way. I'm happy to give us the edge though. 4-1 through 5 weeks, and then the next game is at BYU. This is gonna be a crazy game because I think the game at BYU is like a 10 p.m. start on the East Coast. So if the body clocks aren't right and you're feeling like you're starting a game at 10 p.m., then that can be that could be pretty rough. BYU, talented squad, although they do have there's been some news that, with their quarterback situation, the quarterback that they had that was going to be the starter going into the season basically got kicked off the team, kicked out of the school. He's gone in at Miami now, I think. And so they have a new quarterback who's transferring in from Stanford, who is a redshirt freshman or a true freshman, and he's going to wear number 44, which is crazy. So, I mean, given the quarterback situation at BYU, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I know this game's out on October 3rd, so you have like 4 or 5 games to get in shape and get in, game experience and things like that. So by that point that we see BYU, their quarterback could be feeling pretty comfortable and doing well. But I do think that the FPI, according to Chat GPT, is only 18.5% chance for us to win this game. I have a hard time well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about this quarterback, but I just think that the quarterback situation over at BYU should give us more of an edge than what this FPI is giving us. I want the playing on the road is a little tough on the West Coast, or more in the West, maybe not the West Coast, but so I think I will agree that maybe we can count this as a loss for West Virginia, but I do think we have a better chance than 18%. At UCF, win percentage is 33.1% probability. Historically challenging road environment. I don't know. I saw Neil Brown go into UCF and dominate a couple seasons ago, so I'm not too scared of UCF. I know they're a pretty historically good program, good athletic guys over there. I think we can win that game. So that's one game that I disagree there with ChatGPT. Being on the road is tough, obviously, for sure. But if Neil Brown can do it, so can you, Rich Rod. Next week after UCF, October 25th versus TCU, a home game. Higher win percentage there, or win probability there, 43.7% chance to win that game according to FPI. We had like that one crazy win against TCU where we almost like a fluke win, the blocked kick and all that stuff, blocked field goal. TCU, that's like a toss-up game. I mean, at this point, I think home field advantage is great and stuff. And at this point in the season, being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 games into the season, who knows what we'll see. So I think like I can see a world where we are competing and we're better than anyone thought we were going to be, and it's a win that we can win at home. Yeah, I guess I'll agree with TC or with ChatGPT there. At Houston, a 50.7% chance to win. Toss-up game by the projections. Houston was where WVU had a dramatic prior loss. Don't want to remind me. Likely that we can rebound. So yeah, I mean, I think like again, I don't know a ton about Houston specifically, but I think going into Houston, we should be able to go in there and win. They're not historically a great football program, and assuming that we're fairly healthy and not dealing with too many injuries and things like that, I think we should win. Next week, November 8th, we play Colorado in Morgantown. I think that should be a good game. It'll be fun to have prime time coming to Morgantown. I think it's a game that we definitely should be able to win, so agree there. Second to last game, November 15th at Arizona State, a 16.3% chance to win. Long road trip, and Arizona State is strong. Tough challenge. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Arizona State went from last season being picked to get in last place to win the entire Big 12, and it sounds like they have a lot of that roster coming back this season. So definitely agree that they'll be a tough opponent. Always tough to travel also. And again, like I said with the BYU thing, traveling multiple time zones can be tough, especially if it's at night. I'm assuming it'll be a night game. Usually the West Coast games are night games, which pushes that to like a 10 p.m. East Coast start. And again, if your internal body clock isn't adjusted very well, that alone can be tough. And if you start slow against a team like Arizona State, you can get stuck behind and have trouble coming back. So, not to say we can't beat them, but as of this point, I would not predict that we would win that game. And then final game against Texas Tech, November 29th at home, a 44.2% probability to win. So they have that checked down as a loss. Texas Tech has been picked to be a pretty good team in the Big 12 this season. I think that this could be one of those like trap games for Texas Tech if they end up having a season like that some of the pundits think that they will, where towards the end of the season, if you have some injuries, you're coming into Morgantown. If let's just say like West Virginia is doing fairly well enough, you can get a good crowd at home, get some good home field advantage. Texas Tech is one of those schools where it's like kind of a toss-up game, I think. I think it's a closer game than a 44.2% chance. Personally, I could see it being a win or a loss in this case. And in this case, the final predicted record based on what we just went through from Chat GPT is 6-6. So, which is basically what my prediction was before going through this. The specific games, I think I mostly agree with. I think there's some room for things to be switched around. You know, maybe we beat Texas Tech, but we lose to Utah. Maybe we don't beat Pitt. I mean, we better, but maybe we don't beat Pitt, but maybe we beat UCF, right? Like they have UCF as a loss on here. So I think the specific games definitely a lot harder to predict, but I do think that if we can start off strong and go 3-0 in non-conference, you know, from there it's like anybody, you know, they didn't even do like a coach's poll or whatever in the Big 12 because of how inconsistent the Big 12 is and how hard it is to predict the Big 12 because schools are just it's a really good conference for competition. The fact that you have an Arizona State who came in being picked last to go, and especially when you have the now with like transfer portal, NIL type stuff where you know you get one big recruit in the off season and it can change your entire outlook of the season. So, and if people aren't tracking that, you might predict that this team is not going to be good because it's all these things, and you come back and end up playing well. So, yeah, 6-6 I think is a fair prediction. I mostly agree with ChatGPT there. I think I would love to see West Virginia do better. I think there's a world where they can go 8-4, where they could go. I mean, 8-4 I think is I would put as a ceiling. If we went better than 8-4, then that's a fantastic season. But yeah, so I think we'll, you know, obviously I gotta wait and see, but I'm super excited for this weekend. We get college football back. Well, college football started last weekend, I guess, technically, but we get West Virginia football back, and we get to see ourselves in action against Robert Morris in Morgantown. So super pumped for that game. We'll do a plan will be to do a recap probably after the game at some point, and then a preview, kind of recap of that game / preview of the next game. In this case, like the preview for Robert Morris is like, yeah, we better beat the crap out of them. Don't know much about them. This is our first time ever matching up with Robert Morris, FCS opponent. Definitely can be dangerous. Those schools have some good athletes, and with again, you can't highlight the roster turnover thing enough with West Virginia, where we just don't know what we're going to get. I think there's a chance where we come out and we do great. There's no issues. It's seamless and all these things. And I think, you know, Rich Rod with his press conferences lately, he's very critical. He's been critical of the team that they're not where they want to be and all these things. And I think that he's challenging this team to be as good as they possibly can, which is great. You know, we didn't get a whole lot of that with Neil Brown, at least not publicly, not a whole lot of public challenge, a lot of public pats on the back and things like that, which is also good too. But it's nice to see this program be challenged and the guys in there be challenged. And I think there's a lot of good athletes on both sides of the ball. I think the defense, it sounds like the defense is shaping up to be pretty good for West Virginia. And I think the offense has a lot of weapons that if we can just utilize them in the right way, there might be some growing pains, but hopefully we can get those growing pains out between Robert Morris and Ohio and then roll into Pitt week, kind of a well-oiled machine, or as much as we can be, and go from there. And I think, like I said, if we can start non-conference schedule 3-0, then going 6-6, not to say it's easy, but definitely much more manageable to go 6-6 after starting 3-0 than if you start 1-2 or you know, something like that. So again, the Big 12 is a crapshoot in a lot of ways. Like, yeah, the teams are strong, the teams are good. There's a lot of good competition. There's a lot of good parity there. West Virginia, I think, has been picked last to finish last in the Big 12 for a few reasons, but I think a lot of it is people just don't know what to expect. I think people mostly like the Rich Rod hire for West Virginia and think that in the long run he can do well and he can kind of help turn the program around. But to do well in a first year with getting 70 new players is crazy. So it'll be fun to watch. It'll be fun to see how he does, how it all goes down, and how West Virginia competes and all that stuff. And I think we'll compete, whether we win the games or not. We'll be competing, and it'll be fun to see. So, all that being said, I think that's all I got for this episode. Shout out to Chat GPT for the analysis, and honestly, no, I don't think they're too far off. I appreciate the 6-6 prediction. I think that's fair. I think anything less than that is a little not as fair to West Virginia's abilities, and I think it's just anything people thinking that they'll finish less than 6-6 are just not. They're just assuming that the guys we have on the squad aren't good, and I don't think that's the case. I think the roster turnover, and the gelling of the roster, the guys gelling on offense. The offensive line is a big question, obviously, and how well we do there. And if the offensive line can't get things together, then yeah, maybe we'll do worse. But assuming that they could get things together and they're a formidable, we have a formidable offensive line and stuff like that. Like between Jaheim White, Nico, Jaden Bray, and all the various guys on the offensive side of the ball, I think we have enough weapons that we can definitely be competitive. So, all that being said, thank you so much for listening, and go Mountaineers. Hey, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating and share it with your friends. And as always, go Mountaineers.